Pues ahora tenemos con nosotros a Andrea Calori, del Politecnico de Milano. Él sí que es arquitecto, pero tiene una sólida trayectoria de trabajo sobre el espacio periurbano, sobre los espacios agrarios periurbanos. La situación en Milán es bastante diferente de las ciudades que los que estamos trabajando, pero aporta una visión interesante también de cómo relacionar el desarrollo de estas zonas con el desarrollo local. Así que muchas gracias. Si quieres, yo te lo relacionamiento a Isa de 5 minutos.
Okay, good afternoon to everybody. Maybe you can understand me if I speak in Italian, but because we are Latin people, but I will speak in English. Thank you for the interpreters. Okay, my task is to keep you alive after one quite intensive training session. So my first idea was to tell you something about my theoretical perspective. But it is not a good idea to keep you alive, even if I think that could be important to develop, in my opinion, to develop what Fernando told to us at the beginning of this day, because yes, we are taking for granted that urban and rural dynamics are important in this phase of crisis. But I'm an architect, and I know that in our discipline we are not so used to speak about the development model as a planner, as an architect also. Planner and architect are different, but in any case we are not so used to speak about it. So I will not speak about our development model and my idea of the crisis, but I think that we should think something about it, because it is not by chance that we are speaking about agriculture now, but what we are speaking about have to think something about also at the global level. I work in the local development perspective model, but an eye, an attention to the global dimension is important to understand what is happening. So only 2 or 3 slides to say that it is important to speak about it, because we have, this is to keep you alive. Because this is Batman. Batman is the typical modern hero, like Superman, like Spider-Man and so on. All the modern heroes are urban heroes. Okay? It is important to think about the effects and maybe the roots of our development model, because for us the countryside is similar to the cartoon of Heidi. It is not by chance that Heidi is a Japanese cartoon created in the late 70s, at the beginning of after the oil crisis, and at the beginning of the last part of the modern era. And so the idea that we have heroes in the cities, and the countryside is something like, okay, archaic world. And when we think about sex in the city, not in the country. So maybe we do some sex in the country, I hope. But the idea is that what is smart for us is in the city. Okay. This is not to speak about theory, but to remember that when we face, Marta in the last slide spoke about the importance to speak about indicators and so on, but there is a problem of how to deal with different stakeholders. And we have people, all of us are people, we have people that are born and grown in a typical modern era with the heroes, with the myths. And so speaking with the stakeholder is not a matter of mathematics, of putting the people in some places to decide something. It's a way to go deep inside the culture of the people. at the beginning of the modern era, this is the most famous, the most famous map of Rome, the city of Rome, at the beginning of the 18th century, designed by Nolli. Nolli is one of the most famous geographers at the beginning of the modernity. This is the part of the city center in Rome, near Quartiere Testaccio, the southern part of the center of the city, and it is full of fields of hordes. Right in the same year, Piranesi, the famous painter and so on, designed the same part of the city of Rome as a kind of infinite city. So, it's to say, without using the cartoons, but we use it for academic representation, a comparison between the reality of a geographer, the reality of the first precise modern geographer in Rome and in Italy, and the image of the ideal city in the same place and in the same year. So when we speak about our cultural model, we have to think about this deep histories. So what I would like to tell you is something starting from some case studies, not to speak about case studies in our region, Lombardy region in the north of Italy, but to pick up some ideas in the connection between our culture, how to implement the idea of agroecology, urban and peri-urban agriculture, urban, city and country relation and so on, within the context of a social discussion. We will speak about the Parco Agricolo su Milano. Milano is here. The Parco Agricolo is that part of the territory in the context of the system of protected areas in our region. It's the first agricultural park in Italy, and in fact, maybe the only real one. It was founded more than 20 years ago. And there is a particular governance with the managing institution, which is the district of Milan, Provincia di Milano, with a common governance with 88 municipalities. Okay, this is only to say something about the context, because it is not a case study presentation, but it's to say that in fact the territory is like an emmental cheese. It's not a compact area, because in the decision-making process, this is the area of Milan, the decision-making process, it was not possible to think about the whole territory as a way to think about agriculture and land planning and environment and so on. It was created more than 20 years ago with a different technical culture, with a different common culture and institutional culture and political commitment. So the idea was absolutely an avant-garde to think about agricultural park in the late 80s, with the boom of development, the last boom of development. So to think about it, it was really an avant-garde, but without speaking really about the connection between planning and development and rural policies. So every municipality tried to take a piece of land outside the park. So it was an avant-garde for one side, and then a very traditional way to think about the territory. So a typical urbanistic way to think about planning. In the context of, this is the perimeter of Milan, the municipality of Milan, in the context of a very, very heavily urbanized area, and in the south part, with many free lands, or in the case open spaces, in an area of about 3.5 million people. If you look at about some very, very synthetic data, in the north part of Milan, you have from 60 to 76% of the area are completely urbanized, fully urbanized. While in the southern part, we have more or less 20% of the the territory which is urbanized, just to give you an idea of the difference. This is a part of the map of the first agricultural park, and you can see this effect of emmental cheese with many holes. So without a real interaction, a real how can I say, a real project for the future, for the whole territory, there is a separation between what is called the development areas, which is the urbanized area, and a part of open space, which can be considered in some way agricultural land. This is a typical functionalist approach, a way to think about the territory with a kind of typical culture of the architects in that period, to divide the territory into functions. Okay, here you have the agricultural function. Just to say, to have a critical approach of this kind of avant-garde 25 years ago, but with some criticalities. And what we try to do with our research group over the past 20, 25 years was to think about this part of the territory, which is the southern part of the territory of Milan, not as an area with a precise definition, defined area. Okay, there is a problem of administration, so you have maybe, for some specific policies, you have to define a borderline. But it is more interesting to think about which is the deep structure of the territory, combining the interpretation of the ancient Roman way to plan this area, because there are very, very precise tracks of the Roman area in the borderline between fields, in the shape of the water, and then there are signs created by the medieval period, the medieval monks, and then from Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci is a big planner of this area because he designed the system of the canal, the artificial canal. This is the boundary of the big valley in between one river Ticino, river Adda, and then other river inside. There is a complex creation of the territory and the evolution of the territory. So the idea, about 20 years ago, we didn't have any kind of geographical information system. It is handmade. But the idea was to think about the relation between city and country and the ecosystem of the central part of the region. Okay, and then we can think about to have some kind of boundary, to have some administration of a piece of land. But the problem is not to combine, to follow the division of the territory between the division of municipalities, the administrative boundaries, but to think about the deep ecology, the deep history, the deep structure of this territory. And after many years of work, this is an image of this territory, so full of there is a combination of water and farming land, because there is a very, very fertile land, very interesting land. And this image gives an idea, a very, very short idea, of what could be the meaning of deep ecology and agroecology, and maybe archaeoagroecology. So a way to think ecology about as a process, a very long process, because the south part of this territory, what we call the agricultural park, it was colonized not by the Romans. It was a wetland during the Roman Empire, but in the first part of the medieval period, it was really planned by the monks. And the monks worked to make the land dry, designing in all the plans many small canals to keep away the wetland, the water in the wetland, and to make it arable. So the idea is that the ecosystem is a process, is an environmental process, but also a socio-economic process, and it was the actual settlement of the southern part of the plain is the result of this medieval project carried on by the monks, and this is the interesting city-country relation. This is the tower of the most important abbey in the south of Milan, and this is San Bernardo, that gives the new city, the new colonization of the countryside, and from the countryside it was the beginning of the Renaissance of Milan after the medieval period. So the quality of the knowledge of the ecosystem was the way to think about a different well-being for Milan. Milan was not a big city in the medieval period after the fall down of the Roman Empire. So the idea is an interesting suggestion, because the idea of what is the ecosystem within a socio-economic idea. And for those of you who are interested in symbols and history, is very interesting, because we have 3 rivers. Here there is Milan, is the southern part of Milan, 3 rivers, and just near each of the rivers there is one abbey. They are exactly in the same distance on each other, so there is a symbolic geometry of the landscape, and it could be a big history to be narrated here. But it's only to say that when we speak about ecology, environment, social behavior, lifestyles, social economy, we have to put together. So we have to put together many things. And this is not to say that we have to think about our landscape like a kind of restoration of the medieval period, but to think about which is the socio-economic and the environmental combination for our period now. Knowing that there is also a symbolic, from this symbol to Batman, there is also a symbolic matter that we have to manage when we plan something. Okay, the fact is that this is Milano. Nobody in Milan knows about the countryside. I'm a citizen of Milan. We are famous for fashion, for design, for finance, not for agriculture. Even if Milan is, we have Giorgio Armani and so on. Even if is the most fertile land of Italy and maybe Europe is here. So there is, and we don't know that there are 3 rivers in the plain. We think about the plain as a flat land. And in fact, this is the impact of what we call agricultural park within the city. So, this is only to say something about where we are. This is the context of the so-called agricultural park. Okay. And when you are some kilometers outside Milan, the countryside is really fantastic, but we have to move from the city. Okay, this is the context. So, what we did in the last maybe 15 years was to try to manage the gap between territorial planning with that kind of traditional functionalist approach to rural policies. Also, we think if we think only to territorial planning and rural policies, we have different institutional frames. And if you speak with farmers or the institution connected to farmers, you cannot speak about territorial planning and vice versa, for example. It is very difficult. It's really a body-to-body work with people. And then in the last year is happening something very interesting on the social side. So what we try to do is to manage the gap and starting from more or less 8 years ago, we tried to draw this map, which is a dynamic scenario. This is the first version. Now there is a much more complex version of this map. But the idea it was to combine many information provided by scientists, by technicians, by civil society association, by many people, single farmers, many people, to put together information about where are and who are the active farmers, citizens, where are the local shops, for example, that sell to local producers, combined with information from the technical information from the ecomosaic with the satellite photos and so on, and to combine other kind of territorial values that cannot be defined and analyzed with a satellite photo, with a precise indicator and so on. So the idea was to try to think to a technical tool to put together all this information and to have a dynamic scenario, means to use it not as a definite map, but to use it in the social discussion and institutional discussion. A kind of visual agenda that can be updated month by month and year by year. Because we know that we have very, very interesting tools for analysis of this territory. We have plenty of layers, the geographic information system, but the problem is who knows that, who uses those data, and on the other side, who has the capability to say something interesting, to have a light on the data. Also, in the Burkhard presentation, it was said that it is important to have this kind of connection. So this kind of visual agenda is divided in 3 levels, where we try, in a dynamic way, year by year, to define the main issues for a project, the main issue for defining what could be the future in a scenario perspective. Then to identify specific actions, and then to map month by month and year by year, to map the crossing point of the relation system between the actors. Because in a very complex situation with 3.5 million people, many institutions, district municipalities, basin authorities for water, for everything, chamber of commerce, trade unions, etc., etc. It is difficult to have one unique point to govern all the system. So the idea is to say, okay, each actor, the institutional actor, has his own instrument. Municipal plan, district plan, regional plans, for environment, for territory, and so on. But this is a kind of soft instrument, also to map a very small point of relation between people, between local markets and farmers, between some kind of innovation points, and so on. And so the computer there is not there. Okay, this is project issues in a strange language. So there is one level with a small book, a small website with the common strategy, with the shared strategy, the project issues, which are the main goals for to improve the sustainability of this area. And then there is a agenda, place by place, that try to identify also in a physical way the possible effect of the combination of environmental potential, planning, indication, integrated policies, and so on. And so this is a way to have one level, the first one, to share the common scenario, then a level to share and to update year by year the projects that are going into the quality perspective, and then the idea to have a very, very defined places where you have, for example, information points, farmers market, other place of relation between environmentalists and farmers, and so on. And so you have, for example, this is an enlargement, and you have this is an indication of not a protected area, but an area which is affected by a project of quality improvement of the river basin, of very polluted river basin, connected with the idea that here there is a pole of attraction because there is an interesting farmer market which is managed by a network of associations connected with 4 or 5 farmers which are in this area. So the idea is to combine the presence of active actors, association, institution, with the information provided by planners, and with some with the use of some indicator of quality for the ecosystem of the river. And so the idea is to put together all this kind of information, which is a kind of visual agenda. And then there is this triangle to put into evidence the connection between the most important social points of how can I say? They are not simply a farmer's market, they are a place of meeting for association for groups, but also a place that is an important, one of the most important airbays. So the idea is to combine historical, cultural, ecosystem, and to have a map where you can show, okay. Then after 2 or 3 years, we began to analyze in a very precise way about 200 farms. We have data, precise data about one single farm, what they produce exactly, the quantity, the quality of the production. And we compare the information provided by the official database of the region Lombardy with direct interview to the farmer. We combine that with the information of the land use, piece by piece by land, which is provided by the official data of the region Lombardy. So to have this kind of continuous dynamic between qualitative and quantitative data about agriculture, and then analyzing which is very hard work because it is absolutely informal, the connection between the so-called gruppi d'acquisto solidari, which is solidarity purchasing groups, groups of families that are self-organized to buy together food from local farms. And so it is another layer of interaction, very, very interesting, because the idea is to see in the same area, okay, if you have some farmer which is who are committed on local quality food, typically the same farmers are the typical farmers that take some financial support to do some kind of agroecology project. They are shifting into organic agriculture, and on the other side they try to rebuild some piece of landscape. They manage the quality of water locally. So the idea is that most part of the active farmers are interested in quality food and in quality of environment. So the connection between this kind of solidarity purchasing groups and these farmers are important because they create the possibility for that kind of farmers to go on in shifting to organic agriculture, for example, thinking that in Italy there is not only in Italy, but it's a common phenomenon. And the idea is to understand in the same place if there is a possibility. This is a particular of the map, this I made quite old, 3 years ago. But the idea is that okay, here there is a very interesting farmer, very oriented on local quality food, and this is the proposal of the reconstruction of the lines of trees to rebuild the landscape using local market tools. So sustaining the farmers with groups of families that make available money for the farmers to do other kind of actions. And so the idea is to continue to go up and down, back and forward the information, taking advantage on the fact that there are growing coalition of actors. So here there is Milan, and especially in this part of the agricultural park of Milan, there are a coalition of actors working together for local quality food. So the idea is that you can plan something, but with a traditional planning technique, without social animation, you can cross-fertilize the active actors that are moving toward sustainability with territorial planning. So this is an important key, to use this kind of lifestyle changing, which is not also personal lifestyle changing, but also a way to reorganize the society. It is absolutely increasing. This phenomenon is exploding of coalition of local actors. And this is an image of Italy. This is starting from the 1994, the creation of the first solidarity purchasing group. The last data is 2008, but now there is a vertical line. This is the diffusion of solidarity purchasing groups. Also, only in Milan there are about 200 groups of families. Each group is from 15 to 200 families, to give you an idea. Only in Milan there are about 200 groups in the official list of these groups. Then there are many other informal groups. And in all Italy, it is increasing this phenomenon. So the idea is that the perspective of agroecology and the different management of territory has a basis, now has a social basis, which was not on the field until some years ago. Now this is the last step. We are working now. We started about 1 year and a half ago. I have some minutes. Not only to speak with small groups and small farmers, which are very, very interesting because they are the pioneer of new agriculture, and it is also interesting from a quantitative point of view, but it is not a solution for everybody. And so, how to make another jump to manage the quantity of food in that part of the city? So, this is the map of the agricultural park, more or less. This is a part of a map that we have been doing in the last 7 or 8 months on all the institutional canteens of region Lombardy. We have a map of the institutional canteens, that is the school meals, the nursery, the hospital, the hospice, the other kind of daily aid for elderly people, with a total amount every year of 87,500,000 meals. That means that 90 million apples every year, 90 million eggs, for example, so more than. But they are not cultivated around the city. So the idea is, okay, we have planning information, we have many data about, because I didn't show you the satellite data and so on that I use, but we know piece by land by piece by land with different kind of information which kind of production there is in our territory. And the question is, why? There is such a big market, and we know that only in the school meals we have now 38% of organic food, just now, but nobody knows it. Neither the organic association of the Association of Organic Farmers, which is absolutely crazy. Why? The trade union for farmers committed on organic agriculture, why don't they work on this? There is a very precise, very planned demand, because for a public canteen there is a public call for 3 or 5 years of purchasing and providing food. So you can plan. You can, if you are a farmer, if you are an association of farmers, you can plan your production to produce organic food, and then you can implement in your production also other kind of values environmental values. The connection between schools and the territory means education, for example, education to environment and education to territory. So well-being is a way to speak about the quality of environment and the relation between people. You can think about educational program to have care not only about the schoolyard, which is very interesting, very important. It's a way to train children, but also in practice to have social pacts between the country and the city with a quantitative, precise quantitative data. These are all only in the Milan area. Just to finish by interrupting, because I have other slides about our other case studies, more project in other places, but just to because I don't have any more time. Just to say why this tension between the social action, the social dynamics, and the way in which we plan. Because, okay, the territorial environmental biodiversity is connected to the food biodiversity if we speak about agriculture. It is another paradox is that when you plan a city, you used to speak with the landowners, okay? And many occasions are the landowners that go to the mayor to say, okay, it's possible to shift from agricultural land to a building area. This is the typical dynamic. But in any case, a planner works with the landowners. But usually, or in Italy, but not also in Italy, we don't speak usually with the landowners. Why? We take for granted that planning is not for the whole land. This is a tricky question for us. And maybe the question is not only to speak with the landowners, because if we know that there is a connection between biodiversity, environmental biodiversity, and what we farm, because with a heavily with a monoculture. Think about the Midwest plains in the United States. It's not biodiversity. And then if you use a large amount of chemical substances, you can't have biodiversity. So food biodiversity is connected to what you farm for food, and then for energy, that's another problem, connect this. But the actual market doesn't permit to speak about food biodiversity, which is not organic production. We have a big problem, I think, in Europe about, because organic production is quite expensive for many farmers. A large number of farmers now are going outside the market, and they are farming now with the organic principle without organic certification, because the organic certification is expensive, and going outside the chemical approach is a way to spend less amount of money. So we don't have any kind of data. We don't have any kind of data, but this evolution of our agriculture in Europe. A large number of farmers are going into organic without any kind of certification, and we don't know anything about that. But they could be important to shift from the actual situation to more biodiversity context. We need a new market, because in this market we cannot, because of this kind of unification of seeds and so on, what we know. So the problem is to create local pacts, local social pacts between producer and consumer at a local level. It is a way working in this kind of social economic connection, social connection, combining lifestyle, new lifestyle, and so on. New solution for the markets and new lifestyle is a way to do some other kind of territorial planning. I don't know if it is the good word. But if we want to improve our environmental biodiversity, we have to work in the connection between actors, active actors, to create local pacts. This is the key of what we are doing. And just to give you some idea in 1 minute, in the maximum boom of the organic agriculture in the agricultural park of Milan, about 10 years ago, with all the European subsidies, at least 4 and maybe 5 farmers were organic, with organic production. In the last 3 years, with the increasing number of these kind of local markets, solidarity purchasing group, organized network for providing food at the local level, about 25 to 30 farmers are shifting into organic. And then there is a really increasing number of young people going in the countryside to build new economy, to start to farm. So it is a really tricky interesting. It is difficult to understand what is the future, because in the official debate in the European Union, also in our region, there's no track about it. I'm a part, as a consultant, I'm a part of the discussion in our region for the next 7 years, from 2014 to 2020, for the next 7 years of European agricultural policies. But there are no tracks about this huge dynamic in the official institutional term. So it is a problem for us as a researcher, which is our role in the connection of. So there are disciplinary problems, questions, but also some questions about the role of the planner and the role of the researcher in this moment when there is a very, very rapid social dynamic, and the problem of the connection of the institutional panel. I work as I'm in the FAO, the World Committee on Food Security in FAO, from the social movement side. So I have been working in that context in the last year, and I think that it is more dynamic in that heavy, very difficult and complex context, which is the United Nations world context with many, many actors, than in the European Union, and maybe also in Milano. Because there is the connection, maybe the conflict between different development models, the Brazilian model, the African model, and so I saw the potential of other kind of approach, connecting different ideas of development connected into agriculture. It was my first slide. And I see the potential, the cultural and practical potential of moving into a different model if you put in the connection different actors, the way in which you put official data, precise data, institutional perspective in a social dynamic, maybe you can have different solutions. And this is what we are trying to do. It's not so easy, but we have to combine official activities and volunteer activities, but I think that is part of the game.